They did not call it an execution. Executions were public. Clean. Controlled. This was called a test. The pit was older than the station built around it. A vast circular chamber cut straight into asteroid stone, reinforced with alloy ribs and glowing restraint fields. Heat shimmered in the air. The smell of ash never fully left. Dragons lived there. Not legends. Not stories. Real creatures, ancient, massive, intelligent enough to hate. Their scales were scarred from past attempts at control. Their wings were folded tight, muscles coiled like loaded weapons. Eyes like burning metal tracked every movement above. They had eaten armies. They had broken fleets. And now the council wanted to make a point. The human stood at the edge of the pit, hands bound behind his back. No armor. No weapons. No implants. Just a plain gray uniform, scuffed boots, and a face that showed no panic. His name was Elias Ward. He looked down into the darkness where the dragons waited. No one looked back at him. The viewing chamber was full, officials, generals, scientists. Some watched with interest. Others with disgust. A few with unease they would never admit. Lower him, the chief adjudicator said. A platform slid forward beneath Elias's feet. Restraints unlocked his wrists, not as mercy, but because the rules required it. No tools. No interference. No chance to cheat the outcome. As the platform began to descend, the chamber grew quiet. Very quiet. No one spoke. They had seen this before. Not with humans, but with others. Stronger species. Faster ones. Smarter ones. None had lasted long. The heat rose as Elias passed below the rim. The light dimmed. The roar of the station faded until only the low, breathing rumble of the pit remained. Then the dragons moved. A massive shape shifted in the dark. Claws scraped stone. A long neck lifted, scales catching the glow of the containment field. Eyes opened, one pair, then another, then many. They saw him. Elias stepped off the platform when it touched the floor. The metal rose away behind him, leaving him alone on bare stone. He did not run. That was noted. Most ran. Even the proud ones. Even those trained to fight. Fear always won in the first seconds. Elias only adjusted his footing and looked around. The dragons circled. One of them was enormous, its wings torn and regrown so many times the membranes looked like patchwork scars. Another dragged a shattered horn across the floor, the sound sharp enough to make observers flinch. A third exhaled a thin line of smoke, testing the air. They waited. The first strike was always fast. Always brutal. It did not come. Minutes passed. Elias sat down. Not slowly. Not carefully. He simply lowered himself onto the stone, legs crossed, hands resting on his knees. He kept his back straight. His breathing steady. A murmur rippled through the viewing chamber. What is he doing? He's in shock. Or trying to provoke them. Sensors showed his heart rate. Elevated, but controlled. Stress chemicals present, but not spiking. He was afraid. Just not panicking. A dragon stepped closer. Its shadow swallowed him. Heat rolled over his skin. The air smelled of sulfur and old blood. Elias looked up. He did not stare into its eyes. He looked slightly past them. That, too, was noted. The dragon lowered its head. Its teeth were longer than Elias's arms. A single bite would end it. Everyone knew this. The dragon inhaled. Elias exhaled. Slow. Even. The dragon hesitated. Another dragon shifted, annoyed. A low growl echoed through the pit, vibrating the stone. The first dragon pulled back half a step, not retreating, but not advancing either. The circle widened. No one understood why. The dragons had no reason to wait. Hunger alone should have driven them. Rage certainly would. But something was wrong. Elias reached down and picked up a small stone. He turned it in his fingers, feeling its weight, its rough edge. Then he set it back down. No threat. No challenge. Just presence. A scientist whispered, "He's not acting like prey." "No," another replied. "He's not acting like anything we've recorded." The pit remained silent except for breathing, many deep, heavy breaths, and one human one, small but steady. Time stretched. The dragons watched him. And for the first time since the pit was built, since the first chains failed and the first cities burned, the sensors recorded something new. Confusion. Elias did not know what the council expected of him. He did not know if rescue was coming. He did not know if he would survive the hour. But he knew one thing. Creatures that lived by dominance understood fear. And creatures that understood fear noticed when it was missing. He stayed where he was. And the dragons did not kill him. Not yet. The first hour passed without blood. That alone unsettled the observers. Dragons were not patient creatures. They attacked when they were hungry. They attacked when they were bored. They attacked to remind the pit, and each other, who ruled it. Yet the humans still sat on the stone floor, alive. The dragons had stopped circling. They spread out instead, taking positions along the edges of the pit. Some lay down. Others remained standing, wings half open, eyes fixed on the human. Watching. Elias felt their attention like weight pressing on his skin. Every movement he made was tracked. Every breath was counted. He knew this kind of silence. Not from dragons, but from battlefields. This was the pause before something decided to happen. He did not move. He kept his breathing slow. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Long enough to calm the body. Long enough to keep the mind clear. Fear was there. Of course it was. But fear did not have to be loud. A dragon with fractured scales approached again. Not the largest. Not the smallest. Old, but still dangerous. Its steps were careful now, claws touching stone lightly. It lowered its head and sniffed the air near Elias's face. Heat washed over him. His eyes burned. His skin prickled. He did not flinch. Inside the viewing chamber, alarms whispered as sensors spiked and then settled. The human's heart rate rose slightly, then leveled out. He should be dead, a general muttered. He should be screaming, another said. A biologist leaned closer to the display. He's regulating himself, she said quietly. Like a predator does. The word made several heads turn. Predator. The dragon's nostrils flared. It expected something. Panic. Submission. The chemical taste of terror. Instead, it smelled restraint. The dragon pulled its head back. That was when the others reacted. A low rumble rolled through the pit, not a roar, not a threat. A warning. One dragon shifted position to block another. A tail lashed the ground once, sharp and controlled. Elias noticed. He did not know dragon language. But he understood posture. He understood territory. He understood when violence was being negotiated rather than unleashed. He slowly leaned back and rested his palms on the stone behind him. Open. Visible. Non-threatening. The dragons watched every centimeter of movement. Minutes passed. Then more. Eventually, exhaustion crept in. Not sleep, but the heavy drag behind the eyes. Elias adjusted his position, stretching his legs. He winced as cramped muscles protested. A dragon growled softly. He froze. The sound faded. Permission, not threat. He finished stretching carefully and returned to stillness. Above, the council chamber argued in whispers. This violates containment assumptions. He's influencing them. That's impossible. Then explain this. They pulled up historical footage. Every execution. Every failed test. Every species that had been dropped into the pit. All of them had done one thing in common. They reacted. They fought. They ran. They begged. They screamed. They confirmed themselves as prey. The human had done none of that. Hours passed. The lights dimmed slightly to simulate a cycle change. The dragons shifted positions again. Some slept with one eye open. Others stayed alert. Elias remained awake. At some point, hunger gnawed at him. His mouth felt dry. His hands trembled faintly, not from fear, but from fatigue. He curled his fingers into fists, then relaxed them. A small motion. A dragon noticed. It lifted its head, eyes narrowing. The air tensed. Elias lowered his hands and pressed them flat against the stone. Still. The dragon settled. The realization hit the observers slowly, and then all at once. The dragons were not deciding whether to kill him. They were deciding whether he belonged. His passing, a scientist whispered, voice tight. Passing what? Someone asked. No idea. The pit had never been a test before. Not really. It was a sentence. Now it was something else. Elias closed his eyes briefly, not in surrender, but to rest them. He counted his breaths. Measured time by rhythm instead of fear. When he opened his eyes again, a dragon was sitting less than 2 meters away. Not looming. Sitting. Their eyes met. For the first time, Elias looked directly into a dragon's gaze. There was fire there. Rage. Age. And something else. Assessment. Neither moved. Above them, one truth spread through the chamber, quiet and unwelcome. They had not thrown a man into a pit of monsters. They had thrown a thinking creature into a room full of instincts. And the instincts were starting to hesitate. The first scream did not come from the human. It came from a dragon. The sound ripped through the pit, raw, furious, shocked. Elias's eyes snapped open as heat surged across the stone. He rolled to the side just as massive weight slammed down where he had been sitting moments before. Stone shattered. Claws scraped. Elias pushed himself back, heart pounding now, breath sharp. He did not run far, just enough. Enough to survive. Two dragons were locked together. One was the old, scarred dragon that had watched him for hours. The other was younger, broader, its scales darker and unmarked. It moved with hunger, not thought. The younger dragon had attacked. Not the human. The older dragon met it head-on. Teeth crashed. Wings beat the air. Fire spilled wild and uncontrolled, scorching the walls. The pit shook as bodies collided, ancient muscle against raw strength. Elias pressed himself against the stone and stayed there. He understood this kind of moment. This was not about him anymore. The observers above erupted into chaos. They're fighting each other. Why would it? Pull him out. Now. No, wait. The feeds showed everything. The younger dragon lunged again, jaws snapping for the older dragon's throat. The older one twisted, using its damaged wing as leverage, driving a claw deep into the other's chest. Blood, thick and glowing, splashed across the floor. The younger dragon screamed again, this time in pain. The other dragons did not intervene. They backed away. That was wrong. Dragons always joined fights. Violence drew violence. Dominance had to be challenged. But now they watched. The older dragon pinned the younger one to the ground. Its jaws hovered inches from the exposed throat. It paused. Elias felt the silence return. Heavy. Tense. The older dragon did not kill immediately. It looked up. Straight at the human. The moment stretched. Elias slowly raised one hand, not as a command, not as a plea. Just open. Visible. The dragon's eyes flicked to the hand. Then back to the dragon beneath it. With one brutal motion, it ended the fight. The younger dragon went still. Dead. The pit remained silent. Elias's hands shook now. He lowered them and sat back, chest heaving. He tasted metal in his mouth. Fear had finally caught up to him, but he forced it down. Forced his breathing to slow. One dragon dead. Killed by another. Because of him. The observers above had gone quiet. That's not possible, a general whispered. He didn't touch them, another said. He didn't have to. Sensors flooded the screens with data. Hormone levels. Stress responses. Dominance markers. The patterns didn't match anything on record. The dragons had not reacted to the human as prey. They had reacted to him as a variable. An unknown. A disruption. In the pit, the older dragon stepped away from the corpse and settled back into place. The others shifted closer, to it, not to Elias. They lowered their heads slightly. Acknowledging. Hierarchy had changed. Elias realized something then, cold and sharp. He had not survived because he was strong. He had survived because he refused to play the role they expected. Predators understood resistance. They understood fear. They did not understand stillness. They did not understand restraint. He looked at the dead dragon, then at the others. They were watching him again. Not with hunger. With caution. With memory. Elias stayed seated, farther from them now, back straight, hands visible. His body ached. His throat burned. He wanted water. Sleep. Anything but this. But he stayed. Because leaving his place now would mean something. The pit had rules. He hadn't broken them. He had rewritten them. Above, one sentence appeared in a classified council report, flagged and sealed within seconds. Human presence alters dragon behavioral hierarchy without direct aggression. Another line followed, quieter, more disturbing. Subject demonstrates monster-level threat without violence. In the pit, the dragons lay down. And none of them turned their backs on the human. The council did not sleep. Neither did Elias. After the fight, the pit changed. The dragons no longer moved freely. They chose places. Each one kept distance, not just from Elias, but from each other. Lines had been redrawn, invisible but strict. Hierarchy had settled. Elias felt it in the air. The way the dragons angled their bodies. The way their tails rested instead of lashed. The way no one challenged the old scarred dragon now. And the way all of them kept the human in sight. Not as prey. Not as leader. As something that had shifted the balance. Above, the council chamber filled with arguments that circled the same fear. Remove him now. We can't. Extraction could trigger aggression. He's destabilizing them by existing. That's the point. He's human. Scientists worked through the night, pulling apart data streams, replaying footage, slowing moments down frame by frame. They looked for hidden signals. Pheromones. Implants. Subtle gestures. There were none. He didn't dominate them, a behavioral analyst said. He denied them feedback. What does that mean? A general demanded. He didn't give them fear. Or challenge. Or submission. So they had nothing to react to. Silence followed. That's not a tactic, someone said. It is if you evolved for it, she replied. In the pit, Elias shifted carefully and leaned back against a stone ridge. His muscles screamed. His lips were cracked. Every swallow hurt. A dragon watched him struggle. The old one. It moved closer, not fast, not slow. Elias tensed, but did not rise. He forced his hands to stay open. The dragon lowered its head and exhaled. Warm air rolled over him, not flame. Just heat. Elias blinked, surprised. The heat eased the ache in his hands. Loosened tight joints. He realized the dragon had adjusted the temperature, controlled it. Not accidental. The dragon pulled back. A trade. Something tight in Elias's chest loosened. Above, sensors spiked again. Did it just help him? A scientist whispered. No, another said slowly. It acknowledged him. The word settled badly. Acknowledgement meant equality of a kind. Recognition. The council began to understand the mistake they had made. Dragons were not mindless weapons. They were creatures shaped by dominance hierarchies so rigid they bordered on instinctual law. Humans were different. Humans did not seek the top immediately. They observed. They waited. They learned. They chose. Humans don't escalate by default, the analyst said. They de-escalate until forced otherwise. And if they aren't forced, the general asked. They change the environment around them. The pit was proof. Elias had done nothing spectacular. No violence. No displays of power. He had simply refused to be predictable. Fatigue pulled at him hard now. His head drooped despite his effort. He caught himself and straightened. A dragon growled softly. Not warning. Concern. Elias let his eyes close for a moment. Just a moment. He stayed upright, breathing slow, body relaxed but ready. The dragons did not attack. They stayed still. Hours later, when the lights shifted again, Elias woke fully. Stiff. Sore. Alive. The dragons were in the same positions. Watching. Waiting. The council reached a conclusion none of them liked. If the humans stayed, the dragons would continue to adapt. They would learn restraint. They would learn patience. They would learn choice. And that was more dangerous than fire. A sealed order was drafted. Immediate extraction authorized. Risk accepted. No one said what they all thought. That the pit was no longer containing monsters. It was containing witnesses. Elias opened his eyes as the extraction alarms began to hum. He looked up toward the ceiling for the first time since he arrived. The dragons followed his gaze. Whatever happened next, they understood one thing now. The human was not trapped with them. They had been trapped with him. The alarms changed tone. Not loud. Not urgent. Careful. Elias heard the platform mechanisms before he saw them. The faint vibration traveled through the stone, through his back, through the bones he had been resting on for what felt like days. The dragons heard it too. Heads lifted. Wings shifted. Tails tightened against the floor. No panic. No aggression. Attention. The ceiling above the pit split open. Light poured down in clean, controlled columns. The extraction platform descended slowly, as if afraid to move too fast. Elias stood. His legs protested. Pain flared sharp and bright, but he stayed upright. He rolled his shoulders once and placed his hands where they could be seen. The dragons tracked him. The old scarred dragon rose last. It stepped forward, placing itself between Elias and the others, not blocking him, not threatening him. Just positioning. Elias stopped. He met its eyes. Up close, the dragon was enormous. Its scales were cracked and ancient. One eye was clouded from an old wound. Fire simmered deep in its chest, not raging, just present. Elias inclined his head. Not a bow. An acknowledgement. The dragon did not roar. It lowered its head slightly in return. Above, the council chamber froze. "What is it doing?" someone whispered. "It's letting him leave," another replied. The platform touched the stone. Its restraints remained open. Elias stepped onto it. No dragon moved. As the platform began to rise, the younger dragons shifted restlessly. One took a half step forward, claws scraping. The old dragon growled once. Not loud. Enough. The younger dragon stopped. Elias rose past the heat, past the shadows, past the watching eyes. He did not look away until the rim of the pit cut the dragons from view. Then the platform sealed. The chamber erupted. Orders were shouted. Data was pulled. Emergency protocols were rewritten in real time. Guards flooded the extraction bay, weapons raised, fingers tight on triggers. Elias stepped off the platform. No restraints snapped shut. No one touched him. They looked at him the way prey animals looked at a new shape on the horizon, uncertain whether to flee or freeze. A medic approached slowly. "Are you injured?" Elias considered the question. "No," he said. Then, after a pause, "Just tired." They escorted him away, keeping distance, watching his hands. Behind sealed doors and classified screens, the council issued its final assessment. The dragon pit was declared compromised. Not breached. Redefined. Dragons were removed from execution status. No new subjects were approved. Containment doctrine was rewritten from the ground up. One sentence circulated briefly before being buried. Dragons respond to humans as peers when humans refuse dominance. Another was never officially recorded, but everyone in the room understood it. The dragons had met something they could not burn, intimidate, or overpower. Not because it was stronger, but because it chose restraint. Elias was offered commendations. He declined. He was offered protection. He accepted. He never spoke publicly about the pit. But somewhere deep in an asteroid station, dragons lay quieter than they had in centuries. Not broken. Not tamed. Thinking. And across the galaxy, a new truth spread, slowly, uneasily. Dragons were meant to kill him. He became what they feared. Not a monster of fire and scale. But a human who showed them that even monsters could hesitate. And once hesitation existed, nothing was ever the same again.